Doing two college football player props here on PrizePicks for Saturday, September 23rd. Before we get started, you guys, check out the link in the description below for our premium Discord. $9.30 per month. I think it comes out to 31 cents per day here. It's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks, as well as we have some other premium cappers in there as well that post all of their plays, research, and analysis. So again, go ahead and check out the link, you guys. Super positive community. Everyone in there just trying to help each other cash. I do also want to mention I am not a gambling expert. This is not financial advice. These are simply plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully give you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one is pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get into it, you guys. Two player props from the Saturday college football slate. We have an exciting slate overall. I'm not giving plays from these two games, but that Notre Dame Ohio State game looks very, very interesting, as well as the Colorado Oregon game, which in my opinion, I think Oregon should take care of them pretty easily. But nonetheless, super exciting college football slate. I am recording this video on Friday, September 22nd. And obviously this is for Saturday, September 23rd. So, there's a chance that these lines may move. I can't really control that. But if the lines do move, I will leave a pinned comment in the comments below whether or not I still like the play based on the line change. So, regardless of that, let's get right into it, you guys. Two player props Saturday, September 23rd, college football. Let's go. So the first one is going to be Jalen Milroe over 21 fantasy score here against Ole Miss. Now, I think there's a lot of people that don't believe in Jalen Milroe anymore, or for some reason just think he's a bad player and can't produce from a fantasy score perspective, and I don't think that's the case at all. So we take a look at Jalen Milroe. He's actually cleared 20-plus fantasy points in both of his starts now as a quarterback for Alabama, right? He played Middle Tennessee State, threw for 194, 3 touchdowns, also had 48 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then versus Texas, which obviously a very tough matchup. Texas, I think, is super underrated defense, one of the best defenses in the country. Finished with 20.6 fantasy in that matchup. 255 in the air, 2 touchdowns, had 2 interceptions, right? And then had another 15 carries for 44 yards on the ground. We saw Nick Saban just yesterday. I wanted to share this with you guys. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and he kind of talked about how he liked Jalen Milroe. When things happen like this, bad things happen, right? Take place, get benched, etc., etc. We want our players, when these things happen, to direct their feelings in a way that's going to help them be better players. And he said, Jalen did that this week. I'm pleased with his performance. He's got nothing to prove here. He's our guy. He's the guy that I have confidence in. I just had a meeting with him a little bit ago. Clean up some fundamental things and watch him play. So it's looking like he's going to be the guy, right? He is the guy, I think, in my opinion, in watching Alabama play. He, without question, looks like the best quarterback and the best option to help Alabama win games, right? So we're taking a look at this matchup versus Ole Miss here. It is a home game for Alabama. 55.5 over under. Alabama is going to be 7-point favorites here at home. So it should be, obviously a close game, back and forth. Mississippi or Ole Miss has an explosive offense with Dart and Judkins. And I definitely think both these teams will be able to move the ball downfield and score, which, really for me means his 21.5 fantasy score is a little bit too low. Like, we're talking about his fantasy score being at 21.5. There's a chance, in my opinion, I don't know when you guys are watching this video, that by kickoff, this does bump to 22.5. We saw against Texas, his line was at 22.5 and actually bumped up to 23.5 by the time that Texas game started. And obviously, Ole Miss, a much more vulnerable defense than Texas here, in my opinion. We look at this defense first position here. Ole Miss giving up the second most fantasy points per game to the quarterback position so far this season. 64.1 total fantasy points they've given up to the quarterback position. And they haven't faced a real, crazy, super athletic quarterback, right? Michael Pratt, the quarterback for Tulane, did not play against them, and they were in a shootout kind of versus Tulane. And then Georgia Tech, Haynes King, you guys. Haynes King last week finished with 30.5 fantasy. You could say Haynes King, Jalen Milroe, similar kind of quarterbacks as far as dual threat. And Haynes King, 307 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns passing, 28 for 41, but also had 42 rushing yards and a touchdown as well. And he finished with 30.5 fantasy against Ole Miss. We got Jalen Milroe here set at 21.5. Just seems a little bit too low for me, you guys, considering he's cleared 20 fantasy in both of his starts. And I definitely think, overall, Alabama is going to kind of redirect their offense, right? I think they need a ton of RPOs, repass options with Jalen Milroe. I think they kind of need to switch their entire offensive game plan to kind of build it around him, right? He can show, and I guess he's shown in the Middle Tennessee game that he can be an effective pocket passer, but I think he's at his best, when he has the ability to scramble, and run the ball, right? And now obviously that benefits us tremendously in taking his fantasy score here. We take a look at some odds here over on outlier.bet. Again, there's a link in the description below. You guys can get a 7-day free trial with Outlier. I mean, for us in this fantasy score, I think are great odds here. He's minus 120 on FanDuel and minus 120 on, I believe this is BetMGM, to go over 48.5 rushing yards. He's currently minus 137 on Caesars to go over 211 passing yards. But what I like about this here is that these current odds here for Jalen Milroe, and it's over 1.5 pass touchdowns. I mean, minus 160, minus 151 on DraftKings and Caesars, minus 144 on FanDuel to throw 2 passing touchdowns. Now, if Jalen Milroe in this game, without question, given what he can do on the ground, running the football, if he can give us 2 passing touchdowns in this game, 21.5 fantasy just seems a little bit too low, you guys. Way too low, actually, in my opinion. If he can get 2 passing touchdowns, with what he can do on the ground with his feet, 21.5 fantasy score is very, very attainable for him. Weather should not be a factor as well. Obviously, we got to take a look at the weather because weather seems to be impacting these college football games quite a bit. As of late, weather in Tuscaloosa for Saturday, I mean, it's looking actually pretty hot, guys. Also, should be a great day of football out there in Tuscaloosa. And I definitely think Jalen Milroe, obviously, he's going to be motivated, right? Motivated to show the Alabama fan base that he is their quarterback. Nick Saban just publicly supported him yesterday, so he should be, fully confident, ready to go here, and I like his over 21.5 fantasy score as the first play. It is a strong matchup as well with the kind of weaker Ole Miss secondary. And given what he can do on the ground with his feet, you guys, I love the over here on this fantasy score. The second play is going to be, now I don't want to botch DJ's last name, but DJ Uiagalelei. I'm just going to call him DJ, right? I like his over 220.5 pass yards. Now, this is the line that I think could bump maybe because I think I'm seeing him on some books. We look over on Outlier. He's currently listed at 224, right? So we should, based on kind of how we know PrizePicks operates, we could see him bumping up to 224.5, or I would still play at 224.5. I'd probably play this up to 225 in my opinion, you guys. But I like it here at 220.5. If you're watching this video and it's yet to bump, I'm gonna upload and make this video live as soon as I finish it. So if you're watching this at 220.5, I think that's elite value here in my opinion, considering it's a 4-point discrepancy from the books. But let's get into why I like this. So DJ, you can see here he's over this line in 2 of 3 starts. The only time he missed was against UC Davis, obviously an FBS school, where he only took 13 pass attempts, didn't really need to throw the ball that much. He finished with 239 in his first start with Oregon State against San Jose State, and then finished with 284 against San Diego State just last weekend, and he did have throw 2 interceptions in that game as well, but 9.5 yards per attempt, 8.2 and 9.6 yards per attempt, kind of what you like to see. Anything over 9 or 8 yards per attempt, in my opinion, for college football level is very, very good as far as just being able to rack up those pass yards. But taking a deeper look at this here, this matchup versus Washington State, first of all, this is a road game for Oregon, and Oregon is -3 with an over-under of 57.5 here, you guys. So this is a pretty high over-under here. I think overall, both these offenses are elite, and both of these teams are ranked in the top 25. But we look specifically against Washington State in the Pac-12, second most total passing yards to quarterbacks in the Pac-12. They're giving up, again, the second most total pass attempts in the Pac-12 as well. I know, obviously, they haven't played teams that are in the Pac-12, but overall, against opponents that they have faced, they are giving up the second most passing yards to quarterbacks and the second most pass attempts. Now, taking a look here at some matchups that, Washington State has faced. They faced Colorado State and Wisconsin. Northern Colorado, I'm not going to count this one. Really, FBS school obviously doesn't have the quarterback or the talent overall. But we look at Washington. Tanner Mordecai finished with 278 passing yards on 40 pass attempts against Washington State. And then Colorado State, Braden Fowler Nicolosi, 210 on 20 pass attempts, and then the backup had 24 pass attempts, 4.6 yards average. So, we're talking about 320 passing yards for Colorado State combined with those 2 quarterbacks. And I definitely think that in this game, right, Washington State has a very explosive offense with Cameron Ward, right? Cameron Ward, 451 and 3 touchdowns, 212 and 2 touchdowns, also 43 rushing yards on the ground. So I definitely think for Oregon State to move the ball, they're going to have to throw the ball. And this line just seems a little bit too low for me. for DJ here. We look at Washington State overall in the Pac-12. Like I said, yards per game, the most or second most in the Pac-12, as well as 7.1 yards per throw to the quarterback position, which is the third most in the Pac-12 as well. So it's a great matchup for DJ. I definitely think, given the over-under being at, what is it, at 55 and a half? Yeah, 57.5 with a 3-point spread. Should be a ton of opportunities for him to really move the ball down the field here. Weather looking like it should be clear, not a factor at all. 70, a little bit colder here at night, but again, Oregon State's up there in Pacific Northwest as well, so I don't think it should be a factor here really at all. But the 4-point discrepancy based on books currently at the time of me recording this video, and then given just the amount of passing yards that we've seen Washington State kind of give up. I mean, this one right here for Braden Fowler Nicolosi, who again is the starter who played against Colorado. He threw for over 300 against Colorado. He threw for 210 pass yards on 20 pass attempts. I think without question, DJ gets closer to 30 pass attempts in this game. I mean, he had 30 against San Diego State and 25 against San Jose State. Neither of those teams are the offense that Washington State is. So, again, you guys, let me know in the comments below how you feel about these two plays here for this YouTube video. It's going to be Jalen Milroe over 21.5 fantasy score. DJ over 220.5 pass yards. Both of these overs here. Both these games are kind of in the PM start game, so hopefully you guys have ample time to get these plays in if you are going to be tailing. Again, let me know in the comments below if you guys do plan to tail. Drop a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.